Thank you, Mark. I appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate all of you staying this long and listening to us. And so, as Mark said, I do have the pleasure today to talk to you a little bit about our landfill-free initiative. And so I'd like to begin with a little bit of trash talking. And I hate to tell you this, guys, but we are the trashiest people in Canada. We generate on average about 1 ton of garbage per person every year. And this garbage, and if you think about the population of Alberta, which is roughly about 4 million people, we can all do this math, it's pretty easy. We're talking about 4 million tons of garbage every year. And this garbage is primarily disposed of in approximately 150 landfills and over 400 waste lagoons. And so now you might be wondering, okay, well, that's all great information, but why should I care? And there's a few reasons for this. First, it comes down to cost. At one time, landfills were sort of looked at as a cost-effective way of disposing garbage. And what we're starting to see, especially within the last 10 years, is that this really isn't the case anymore. We're seeing tipping fees continue to increase, and not only that, but range throughout the province of Alberta. So if you're lucky enough to live somewhere in Edmonton, this might only be about $60 a ton. If you're in some place like Canmore, and actually Calgary as well, you can be looking up to as much as $140 per ton. So that's the cost side. Then we come to the environmental side. Landfills actually generate a significant amount of GHG emissions. And more importantly, it's methane emissions that we're talking about. And I'm sure we're all aware, methane emissions are about 25% more potent than carbon dioxide emissions. So we have those two reasons. And then finally, what we're finding is the ability to actually build new landfills is becoming more and more difficult. Alberta Environment and Parks is making it more difficult and are making the requirements for getting licenses more and more stringent. And then on top of this, people are kind of saying, well, I don't really want that in my backyard. And so that's becoming the factor. And ultimately, Albertans are saying to us, we want a low carbon environment. So this is sort of where we came in. We've developed this landfill-free initiative. And what this really looks at is trying to look at waste by an all-encompassing sort of idea. So we're trying to support the development of a waste utilization industry. And this is more than just garbage. We're looking at how can we get rid of our garbage by perhaps utilizing waste heat from industry, as well as looking at perhaps agricultural waste, as well as forestry wastes. And by taking all these various waste streams, we can then start to produce value-added products, such as bioenergy, electricity, and other products. Ultimately, this will allow us to contribute to Alberta's renewable energy. This can be a base load sort of power on the grid, and also help us to diversify our economy. And then it's going to also, because we're hoping that a lot of these initiatives can be done in rural areas within Alberta, help to develop more sustainable development within these communities. So like all good initiatives, we need a goal. And ours is this. We would like a 50% reduction of organic waste to landfills by 2030. Now for Alberta, this is a pretty ambitious goal. But if we compare ourselves, as I feel we need to other places, even within Canada, we're really behind the game here. Nova Scotia implemented this goal in 2000. In BC, there are multiple municipalities that have actually implemented a zero waste plan. And even now, Quebec is currently trying to get zero organic waste to landfill by 2020. So we really need to not only take this initiative, but really start to accelerate it. And that's where we're hoping these partnerships can really come into play. So what's the impact that we feel this can have? Well, first and foremost, we can reduce those GHG emissions. We figure this is about 16 million tons of CO2 equivalent per year. And this would be done by reducing methane emissions from landfills, but also through the converting of biomass waste to biofuels. This initiative can also help us reduce our landfill needs, our environmental footprint, and then ultimately help us create additional jobs and wealth throughout the province. Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about where this initiative began. And it really started about 14 years ago when the city of Edmonton realized that they needed to come up with an alternative to landfilling as they were running out of space. And so as everybody's heard today, Duke, my colleague, was very involved in this and partnered with the city of Edmonton and NRCan to develop the world's first garbage to ethanol facility. If you get a chance to tour the Edmonton Waste Management Facility, I'd really recommend it. It's quite impressive. On top of that, we really also realized that what we needed was a place that technology developers could come to that was sort of plug and play, where they could not only test new technologies, but also test new waste streams to sort of determine how best to utilize these. And so this is where the Advanced Energy Research Facility has been developed. So with this success, we really began to realize, okay, well now how can we implement this even more throughout the province of Alberta? And this is where my colleague, Xiaomei, just may put your hand up so everybody can see where you are. There she is. And I've kind of given her the name of the queen of trash talking. She's been really instrumental in going around to multiple municipalities throughout the province and talking to them about the options that they have for using waste. And what she's found is that these municipalities have been really interested in this idea, but really there were sort of three hindrances. One was the amount of waste that they had. More importantly, what was in that waste. A lot of times they were unaware of it. And then even if they could figure out that, it was sort of that lack of technical expertise. What would they do with that waste? And so this is really where we felt as an organization that we could help to fill this gap. And so we began on this process of first trying to identify what's in the waste. So this is where we've done 3 separate studies, one with the region of Red Deer, the region of Leduc, and then the tri-region, which consists of Parkland County, Spruce Grove, and Stony Plain. And really the goal was to characterize the waste in order to determine the percentage and how much waste of that was organic material that we could then use current technologies to convert into some value-added product. And what we really found from this is that even though these regions can be fairly close to each other, their compositions were quite different, as were their quantities. And so this then kind of identified that next gap that said, well, there's not going to be that one single solution that's going to help us to utilize this waste. And so this is where we partnered with a technology scouting company called Signals to help us identify what are the current available technologies that could be used for different quantities of waste as well as different qualities of waste. And so through this technology intelligence study, we were able to come up with a database of about 100 technology providers that we could then take back to the municipalities, depending on the waste stream that they have, that we could then find a solution for them. So then this really kind of opened up that next step of sort of saying, okay, well, now that we know what's in our waste, we sort of know some technologies that could be available, it really becomes about where should we build this and what are the economics around that? And how do we decide which of those technologies is really going to be the best solution for a particular municipality? And so this is where we partnered with the University of Alberta to develop a user-friendly waste-to-value-added decision tool that any municipality, industry, or government person could kind of use to make this decision. And it really looks at sort of taking those technology characteristics as well as siting, so in terms of transportation, are there water sources nearby, and taking the economics to determine what technology is going to be the best solution. And what we're hoping to ultimately use from this model is to optimize it to determine where within Alberta could we site the potential waste to value added facilities. Okay, so then on top of this it becomes, okay, well, what's it going to cost us? And so we did a quick calculation here. And if our goal is that 50% reduction of organic wastes, this would look like by 2030 that throughout the province of Alberta, we would need waste to value added facilities with a total capacity of about 1.1 megatons. In order to achieve that, if we assume that we're starting to build these by 2020, and we're going to need investments till up to about 2030, that investment would look like about $39 million per year. Okay, so that's significant. However, by the time we get to 2030, we can start generating revenues. And these revenues could come in the form of electricity, and carbon credits, composting, and other options. And we feel those revenues are on the order of about $90 million per year. Okay, so where are we right now? Now that I've kind of talked about this whole scheme that we've been working on. Well, like I mentioned before, we've been partnering with the Tri-Region area, which again is that Parkland County, Spruce Grove, and Stony Plain, in order to determine the feasibility of building an organics processing facility for these 3 municipalities. And so far, we've completed that waste characterization study and the economic modeling. We're currently doing sort of a continuous technology review that would be supplemental to what we've done with signals. And so then what we're really kind of concentrating now is on that feed study, on that design study, with our eventual goal of hopefully having this waste to value added facility done within rural Alberta. So that's where we're at right now. But where we see ourselves going is a little bit bigger than that. So we've worked with the municipalities, and what we're finding is that, depending on sort of the physical location between municipalities, it might not be feasible to incorporate multiple ones. And on their own, they may not have a large enough waste stream to do by themselves a waste to value added facility. So what we really want to start exploring now is how can we utilize other waste streams to make it sufficient? And so that could be, municipalities partnering sort of with an industry nearby that maybe has a waste source, whether that's waste heat, waste hot water, perhaps with, if they're near agricultural lands, can utilize some of the straw or the other waste that comes from agriculture. And the same with those located close to forestry, being able to use some of the forestry waste that's there so that you create large enough waste streams to really create these value-added facilities throughout Alberta. So just in summary, essentially, as I said, we're pretty trashy. And we're going to continue to get trashy as our population grows. And the landfill costs are going to continue to increase. And relative to other people, we're really behind the game. So it is now that we need to start dealing with these issues and not sometime in the future. And so what we really want to do now moving forward is start to explore partnerships outside of just municipalities. And that's where industry really comes in, is how can we help utilize some of your wastes by combining multiple sectors to get enough waste to create these value-added facilities. And so ultimately our pathway, no matter what waste stream we're looking at, consists of those 4 steps, of that finding that waste, determining what it is, what the quality is, the quantity, looking at the technology that's available to utilize it and the economics to produce it, then that design, and ultimately that building. So thank you very much. And I would now like to call up my boss, Dr. Surinder Singh, who is the Executive Director from the Renewables and Emerging Technologies Group, just to do a little session wrap-up.